Welcome to the Simplified Marketing Podcast. Straight talking ideas to grow your business.
Welcome to the Simplified Marketing Podcast, the show that aims to help you grow your business. You can listen to us on Spotify and all good podcasting platforms. If you're listening on iTunes, don't forget to leave us a review, which helps us become more visible so more people can find out about the show. If you want to view us in vision, you can go to marketingsimplified.co.uk, where you can find out more about the show and our contributors. My name's Georgia and I am your brand guardian.
My name's John Lawley and I'm your web wizard.
My name's Andrew Black and I help trades get off the tools.
So today we've got a really important topic. It's actually Mental Health Awareness Week. So we thought it would be a great time for the three of us to discuss all things mental health, our experiences of it, maybe even our clients' experiences of it as well. I can certainly kick us off. As many of you know, I specialise in helping trades grow their brands and build their businesses through creating strong relationships in their design and marketing. And having worked with a lot of the trades, a lot of them do confide in me actually in terms of our marketing sessions about what's going on in their business and slightly outside. And I have seen quite a pattern over the last few years. A lot of our trades boys suffering with anxiety, stress, depression, burnout. And as with all things mental health, a lot of elements come from financial difficulties and relationship breakdowns, which a lot of our trades boys can experience quite a lot. Andrew, as our tradesman in the group, maybe you want to kick us off in terms of your experience with mental health or how you've been helping some of your clients, break through certain elements within their business as well and their mental health state.
Yeah, I think first of all, it's worth saying that fortunately, the longer we kind of work together and the as the years go by, if you like, the more it's okay to talk about mental health. I think there's been such a stigma attached to it in the past, which is kind of ridiculous in the day and age that we're in. But I know first and foremost, as you mentioned, the Facebook group that you're doing, we're all kind of involved in one way or another with it. I know close people in my family have kind of suffered, whether that be anxiety or depression. I know myself, there's been parts in my life where I've needed to reach out and have extra help from that. But I see it with pretty much every client that I work with. And you see it mainly from patterns of behavior. It's not necessarily like something clinical that needs to be diagnosed. It can be quite a destructive behavior or pattern that kind of covers for something else that's maybe missing. So it's weird being a kind of coach or a mentor or a business strategist or whatever the title really is. You're just a person working with another person. That person might have processes missing from their business, but they're also kind of dealing with a fear or a blockage or a barrier or something or other, a fear of success, a fear of failure, whatever it might be. And the more and more you end up working with those people, the more you find out that actually what's holding them back is some significant issue or problem or breakdown in a relationship that they've previously had, whether that be with a partner or a parent or a previous mentor or employer. It's honestly, you talk to, I'd say 99.9% of people, and you'll find that we're all suffering in similar ways, and we all kind of deal with it in different ways. I mean, do you guys kind of see any sort of patterns of behavior that could be destructive in some of your clients?
Oh, yeah, totally. All the time. I think you were right. I think a lot of what you've just said really rings true with a lot of the people that I work with. It seems to be that if there's something that's a little bit difficult, that's you might need to learn or read up on, something like that, that causes a blockage then for a lot of different things. And until that one little thing is just removed, it's like a plug. And then all of a sudden this energy to do everything else, you've accomplished that, and then all of a sudden this energy to achieve everything else suddenly appears from nowhere. And all of a sudden there's this huge productive spark. Not as just me, but then you kind of have that huge productive spark, and then everything comes back down again because you reach that next bottleneck. And then
it's funny because people think what I do for a living is really tech based. Actually, it's not. It's very creative. I actually struggle a lot with the tech, and it's people like you, John, that I'm normally emailing or WhatsApping and saying, "Oh my God, help me!" But I experience exactly that. The minute I hit this wall was, "Oh my goodness," this panic that I'm not going to be able to do that for this client, or I'm not going to be able to learn how to do this. My anxiety builds up so much and it affects absolutely everything I do. And I can't get my mind off of it until I've tried to educate myself on this one thing or solve this problem. And it affects everything. in work and outside of work. But yeah, the minute you just said that you find the solution, you think, oh, I can do this now. It's like you're able to breathe again. And that's just one of the horrible feelings of anxiety. Like I've suffered
I
with it all
definitely
my
see
life.
that in creative people for sure.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of feeling of whether it not being enough or it not being good enough, or and I think a lot of people experience it in other kind of industries as well. But my partner being in the creative industry, I see it all the time, and it's ridiculous. And it doesn't matter who tells you how good you are and who kind of reassures you, until you have that kind of internal acknowledgement and kind of, manage your triggers, whatever they are, but then kind of say, right, okay, I've done that, or I've got past that yardstick or that measure, or whatever it is. It's really strange. It's so difficult, and you can rationalize it all day long, and you can use, logic. Logic doesn't work in these situations, in these scenarios. When you've got a logical situation versus an emotional situation, emotion will always, always, always win. And sometimes you've just got to let it take you on that kind of journey and not resist it and not fight it. And I think a lot of the time when people do end up fighting it, it's when they just come unstuck, and they can kind of go on these downward spirals, or really go internalize and go into themselves versus, as you kind of mentioned, you're aware of that, you manage that, and you learn and you overcome it. So you still have that moment of panic at the beginning, but then you get to the point where you're managing it correctly.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that can help. People. It's certainly a mindset shift. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not a fluffy person in the slightest. And when people used to say to me meditation, I used to think, seriously, like, come on. But actually, it's really helped over the last few years. Just like taking a moment sometimes and just walking away from something and just like breathing, and reassuring yourself that. And even I worked with a coach a long time ago. They used to sit and tell me, in business, what's the worst thing that could happen? Think of what the worst thing that could happen is. And now see, if that worst thing happened, would you still be okay? Would you still be able to function? Would you still have your family? Would you still be able to do all these things? And I was like, yeah, you're right. Actually, I would. So sometimes thinking of the worst case scenarios, but knowing that it wouldn't get to that because I know I wouldn't allow it, actually kind of, that helped me. It might not be for everybody, but it certainly helped me through that. Guys, obviously with what's going on at the minute, with all things COVID-19, we've been in such a completely different climate. We've been in lockdown. We've been in isolation. We're not allowed to be near 2 meters near our friends and family. How are you guys coping with that? And how are you feeling that your clients are at the moment in terms of their mental health and stability?
It's a real mixture, I think. I think that there are certain people out there who are actually, in a way, quite enjoying it, because they're introverted and they're at home, they're in their own space, and they feel quite secure. As long as that food delivery continues to arrive, I think that they're all right. But I think that's a very, very small minority. I spoke with my mother-in-law earlier on, and she lives by herself. She's in her 70s, and bless her, she's not had any tactile human contact for about 8 weeks now. Obviously because of all the lockdown and everything. So, we've been to see her. We've made sure she's had food, things like that. And she's all right. She's been out walking with friends and things. But I think it's just those little things. If you're by yourself, you've not touched or not had, that tactile touch with another human being for about 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. Imagine that. I mean, I'm quite lucky to, well, I say lucky, but 2 children and a wife, obviously always driving you crazy, but at least you have that other people to touch, cuddle, talk to in the same room. I think for a lot of people, that's a really big thing. I think we underestimate that, I think. And even with all technology, I don't think anything will ever take away from being able to have a cuddle.
This is true. Well, for you and I...
Sorry, I was going to say, I think from for you two in particular, the fact that everyone's gone online and has the technical ability to do so, as we've mentioned previously, is brilliant. It is amazing. So if someone could sort of pump in some serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins and dopamine, no worries, no problem at all. But humans aren't designed to kind of be alone. You might go on a journey, you might have to go on a bit of self-discovery, you might have to take yourself to a dark place to build yourself back up again. But in terms of how we function in tribes. And, if you look at a lot of Simon Sinek stuff that he does, we can't not have that serotonin. It's people are depressed in the first place. Clinically depressed people, it's because of their imbalance between dopamine and serotonin. So there are external ways that we can get that, which is often through, well, as John said, funnily enough, a long hug can produce enough oxytocin to power a space shuttle. So, you know, the fact that you've got these scenarios where people are locked in, even if they are introverted, and the first couple of weeks was okay, it's now getting to that point where it's time to kind of reach out and speak minimum. And then as the kind of rules and regulations start to get lifted, you know, I think a lot of people say, oh, if you need me, reach out. And a lot of these people can't. So if you've got your suspicions or question marks about people, just pick up the phone, because we can't go and see them. But the minute you can go and see them, go and see them, because it means the absolute world to a number of people. You know, sometimes when we do these podcasts, we know exactly what we're going to do, what we're going to say, and sometimes we just pick a subject and we talk. And I think the main message, for me, that would come out of this one is just to talk, just to be open. And as I said, if people aren't forthcoming with information, then you start talking, and eventually they'll talk back.
Yeah. We've got a mutual contact, haven't we? A mutual guy that we both know. And you may have seen this on Facebook, but he basically at the start, I mean, there is a certain side to this, which he's doing it for his own business generation, of course. But from the human side of this, he went through his entire, and he's still going through his entire address book, starting at A, first letter, and just working through and calling every single person he's ever been in contact with, just for a 10 and 20-minute chat. So he's working through that contact book and just catching up with people he's not spoken to for years, different contacts he's probably met once in the blue moon at a different networking event or something like that, just to say hello, how are you, what's going on? And just, I suppose, he said just asking those questions has led to some really interesting conversations, got to know a bit more about different people, what they're going through right now, how their family are getting on and things like that. I think I spoke to him on the weekend, so he must have only got to J in about 6 weeks.
That's funny, because I spoke to him about probably 4 weeks ago. So some contact list. Yeah. I'd just be worried that I get stuck on like Dave's Kebabs or something like that, and I wouldn't move beyond that one.
You have a good old chat with him. Well, it's interesting, John. You mentioned networking meetings, and I know we talk a lot about that on our podcast as well. I know Andrew often brings the subject back to that as well. But I know personally, for a lot of my clients and the people that I work with, the online networking meetings have been crucial in their mental health state over the last few months, because like you said, John, you live with your wife and your children, and Andrew, you're with your family as well, and I'm lucky enough to live with some of my family. But there are many folk that are alone, and their networking meetings are the only time of the week where they actually feel they're in a circle, a social circle. And they've been speaking to me about how important that's been, whereas, you know, other people might have knocked it slightly and, oh goodness me, like, you know, well, I hate the networking online. I want to go back to the face-to-face. I'm not doing it until we get to all be together again. But then there's this other tribe of people that absolutely love it, because it's their one bit of social all week, and they breathe easy. They look forward to it so much, because they feel like, oh, this is like being with friends again. This is like a bit of normality, when all week long I'm by myself, and I may get the occasional phone call, but I'm not having that sort of group banter and you know, the little jokes that come through from different people, and feeling happy inside. So I know we're all a member of you know, our BNI groups and our online meetings, and I know I've found them really great for my own mental state. I don't know about you guys, how you've been feeling in terms of what it's added to your lives over the last few months.
Well,
go on, John. I'll let you go first.
I think you and me, Georgia, have a very similar opinion of the transformation of BNI and networking in general of late. It's got its positives and it's got its negatives. I think you're right. I think the kind of community aspect of it is exceptionally important now more than ever. And I think that actually there has been that support there. And there has been that regular touch point still, even though it's online, or it's, you know, you're doing it as a video conference, or whether it's just phone calls. I remember a couple of weeks ago now, there were a few messages going around in a WhatsApp group And of course, text can be taken out of context at every different point, and it depends who's reading it. I had to call someone because of certain comments that were made. Not too bad, but it turned out that guy was just trying to provoke a conversation because he was lonely by himself and just wanted to have a phone call. So it's like, just you can call me anytime. If I can answer, I can answer. But let's just chat. How are you? He's had a half an hour conversation while the kids played in the garden, and that's all he wanted. Just someone from the outside world, just to chat to. And I think you've got that as part of that networking group. You're all accountable to each other. So there's 60 odd people in our group, and you pick up the phone to any of those 60 people anyway. And now more than ever, that I suppose contact group is very important.
And I've seen the relationships grow even stronger, actually, because with some of the people that I've been speaking to, that I speak to anyway, they've said, "Oh, so-and-so has called me," and just to see how I was like, and it's almost, they maybe never used to speak overly fondly about that person, but all of a sudden someone has cared and picked up the phone and I just wanted to check in. I know you're living by yourself at the minute. I just wanted to make sure, everything's okay. How you doing? Do you need me to come by? And it's completely changed people's mindset about other people. And I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing so much more positive, and the people that are struggling with their mental health, you see their faces light up. You hear their voices light up when they're on the phone to you saying, "I can't believe it. So-and-so came by yesterday with a cake for me." Like, I think that's incredible.
They don't seem to be doing that for me yet, but I'm all up for receiving cakes.
Yeah, who's the cake person?
Yeah, I'll text you her number later, guys. She's doing the rounds. Yeah,
but to be fair, you're absolutely right. Like when we're in those networking meetings, depending on your setup, you can obviously do the gallery view and sort of see 40, 50 faces, however many it is. And I make notes on my weekly sheets for obviously what the businesses are looking for and what contacts we can make. But now we've got a bit more time. What's great is we're able to use that time in the right possible way. And it looks like that most people are prioritizing human contact, relationship building. So being able to kind of use that weekly sheet and just try and look for some of the physical signs of people. Are they a bit down? What's their body language like? Does it look like if they're putting it on? Even just either side their presentation, if it looks like they're coming alive for the presentation and they sort of go back down again into their chair. For those that are involved in BNI or for networking or whatever kind of, groups that you are a part of, just be aware of that. We've all got to take a responsibility. And as you mentioned, be accountable to each other for reaching out and making those contacts. And as I say, we've got the time to do it. So as you say, John, our contact, our friend is doing it on a very kind of extreme level, which is brilliant. But I just make notes and I sort of do a specific business style one-to-one with 2 or 3 people a week now versus my 1 or 2 a week. But I'll also have 5 or 6 15-minute conversations just throughout the week. And it's just essential just to keep talking and just see if people are all right. And remind people that if they're not, well, that's okay as well. Let's just fumble through this conversation and see where it goes, because being on the phone to me, hopefully, is a little bit better than being by yourself for that 20 minutes.
We can't guarantee that.
Could go either way. I'm not going to guarantee that at all. What? I've made you feel worse. I'm so sorry.
Well, that's the thing. We never know how someone's truly feeling, and some people, as I know, they're masters at hiding it. We never know what's going on behind closed doors. And as you guys know, obviously I run a group where I help trades guys with their marketing, but there's also a mental health element that runs through it. And I sort of teamed up with a charity called Time to Change, and part of their mission is #ask twice. So when you call someone and you're, "Oh, how you doing, Andrew?" Yeah, I'm good, which is often, again, as other mental health coaches tell us, we're on autopilot with how we respond to "how are you doing?" So if you ask them again, "Oh, okay, are you sure? Are you sure you're all right? I just wanted to call you." And then sometimes that's when then people, I don't want to say break, but kind of will let their guard down a little bit more, because they can feel, right, this person's maybe seen through a bit of the facade, and maybe this is my opportunity that I can open up a little bit more. So it's always worth asking twice. Thanks very much for listening, guys. We really hope that you've taken away a lot from our discussion on mental health today. And for those of you that may not know, I run a group on Facebook called Tricks of the Trade. If you type in Tricks of the Trade UK and attempt to join the group, if you answer a few questions, I should be able to let you in if you are a trade. And we do have a mental health theme running through all our brand and marketing advice, because we know how important that is for our trades guys. So I hope you enjoy, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon.
That's all for this time, but don't worry, we'll be back with more soon. Stay tuned for new episodes at marketingsimplified.co.uk.